Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais. Bruce Leslie is out this week, but of course, we have Sean Keenan.
Happy birthday, Heidi.
And, yeah, man, so even though we are one less Bruce Leslie today, he is at, I believe it's a under-18 championship volleyball game? Was that what we decided?
He's participating in the under-18 All-Valley Karate Tournament.
Oh, even better.
He will be under the nickname Kicky.
As he's often been known to do. If you've hung around Bruce for any certain amount of time, you know that you're just 2 steps away from a roundhouse right to the old face.
That guy's gonna get it right in the chops.
If there's anybody that I've seen that I'm just like, stay away from him. You're about to get one of those good old fashion kicks. It is that Bruce Leslie.
We miss you already, Brucey.
Eye of the tiger, that kid.
Seriously, I think it's because his training, because that guy was just such a jerk.
Yeah, pretty much.
Such a jerk. What a terrible father figure to have growing up. What do you mean keep kicking?
Keep kicking, just to destroy? What is? Do I have humanity? No humanity. You destroy now. But we are here not to destroy, but to create. To create love. How you like that for transition? Not bad, huh?
Listen to you, Portrais.
We're here to create the love in your heart that you get when you turn on the Netflix one day and you realize, holy smokes, we have a whole new season of Jessica Jones. And you know what? We're going to talk about the first half of that season of Jessica Jones today. And, look, Bruce doesn't need to even be here for the first half. He needs to be here for the second half when we really get down to the proper review here and everything. But we'll go ahead and we'll amalgamate some of the things that we're probably sure he would say.
I like to think of Bruce as sort of like the tugboat that brings us in. You know, like you got the big ships out there. They're doing the work. You know, they got the containers on the ships and they're going from port to port. Mm-hmm. But eventually it takes a tugboat to really bring you in.
A scrappy little guy who comes up and says, you know what? I got this.
That's right.
And then brings you safely into, was it harbor? I don't know how boats work.
Let's say harbor.
Yeah, doesn't that sound nautical?
Well, to make it really, really authentic, you got to say something like, hey, have the tugboat bring us into the harbor.
Harbor, right over there, the harbor port. Just put it right on in there. I think we're ready to hit the seas. That's just me.
I've got my pea coat and my hat.
If you don't have a hat, you look like you're just missing half a uniform right there. So, hat's one of the most important parts. You can almost go without the coat. If I'm to believe
every cartoon I've ever seen, there's always a pea coat and a knit cap.
Mr. Christian. But Bruce, you will be missed on this episode, but we got it. We're going to hold down and review the first 6 episodes here of Jessica Jones, but not before we get to the old mailbag here. What do you say we open one of them boys up here?
Let's do it.
Oh, come on, you stupid thing. Here we go.
Bale's here.
And this one comes to us from Chad. It's entitled Zack Snyder. Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Hey, guys. Love the Watchmen show, and congrats on the 200th episode. Listening to the show and hearing Sean mention alternate comic book films Snyder could do, I got thinking about the current lineup of DC films, and I think Snyder should have directed some Vertigo characters rather than Superman and the Justice League. I truly think a character like Constantine or the reported Justice League Dark film would have been an avenue considering his visual style and dark atmosphere he leans into. Turning Superman and Metropolis into a black and hole seemed too Snydery, though something already pitch dark like some Vertigo comics would seem to suit his style better. Just wondering your guys' thoughts, or have we seen enough Snyder in comic book adaptations? Thanks, superhero fan Chad.
Thank you, Chad. Let me tell you, I don't think he's wrong. You know, I think that Shade the Changing Man, that would be a pretty cool Zack Snyder movie, or like even Starman, the one from the 90s. That seems more his speed. That's not a bad idea at all.
If anything, I would like to say that Zack Snyder needs to go a little bit more of the Christopher Nolan route, which was in between all his Batman movies. He did other films,
right?
And I think I could be wrong, but I would say that the Batman films are probably the better for those films having existed. Because had he stayed directly in Batman for the entirety of those 3 films, maybe he wouldn't have done as good. Well, I don't know.
Well, you got a point there, but I think one of the other things that I have, and I never mentioned it on the last show, one of the problems I have with Watchmen is that when somebody kicks somebody in that movie, they're not superpowered, but they're kicking people and they're flying across the room and ridiculousness. And that's one of the problems I have with Zack Snyder in the first place when it comes, like, everything's over the top and crazy.
Yeah, it's a Robert Rodriguez film.
Right, and it doesn't need to be that. It should be more subdued, the violence when it comes to, the kicking and the punching, because it should have been more realistic, like your Christopher Nolan. But I think that if you give him something dark, like, dark, I think that he can knock it out of the park, because I don't know anyone who says that Day of the Dead is a bad movie. That's a good movie.
Dawn of the Dead,
sorry. Dawn of the Dead is a really solid movie. Yeah. I mean, it's not everyone's favorite zombie movie, but it's good.
Yeah, and I think always he could use just another writer. And obviously, well, we've said it on this show 1,000 times. Kick Goyer out. Just say no. Yes. No. You wrap up a newspaper, get it nice and tight there, smack him right in the nose and go, no. That's a bad Goyer. That's a bad Goyer. Flap. One word real time, just so he knows you mean business. And then send him off.
Yeah. Yeah, or you give Goyer a universe no one cares about, like all of those Archie superheroes, like The Fly and those guys. U.S. Agent, I think, is one of those.
Something
it's The Shield. I'm sorry, it's The Shield, and something where he can just totally screw it up and no one cares, and he uses names that no one knows, and great. There you go, Goyer. Good job on your fake universe that no one cares about.
Here's another name that connects to things, but you don't really know about it. And so honestly, that could probably work best for him in a thing that most people aren't aware of.
Right.
Just get him, just kind of push him over towards a thing that's just like, hey, you just do what you normally do. No one's going to care this time. As opposed to you bringing up a name of somebody that just goes, oh, this is who this is going to be. Nah, not really.
or Zach, to get back to your original question there, the Vertigo universe is a good idea, but what else would be is some of the Dark Horse stuff that they never touched, like Concrete. I could totally see Zack Snyder doing a Concrete movie.
Now, let me throw this one at you. See what you think about this, because rumor has it, looks like Vin Diesel wants to do a Bloodshot movie.
Which is ridiculous.
Said yay, said no one ever.
No offense to Vin Diesel, he's great for what he does. I think that the Fast movies desperately need to keep him in there, but he's getting a little long in the tooth to be playing the tough guy, and he's not a work-a-day, pumping up like crazy like Hugh Jackman. He looks like somebody who, he probably works out, but he's not going to lose his mind working out, And I can't imagine him being completely correct for that role. Can you? I mean, I can't even see it.
No, it's just it's Vin Diesel being Vin Diesel again, saying 8 billion things. When he talked about when he was teasing what he was going to do for Marvel, he basically was just like, yeah, I'm going to be this, that, and the other thing. And it's just like, oh, you're Groot. Shut up. It's like, you don't even set foot on stage, thank heavens.
He is great. He is great, though, with voiceover work. I've always loved his voiceover.
No, he's really great as that. But it's just I think there's somebody who, I think when Vin Diesel looks in the mirror, he sees something that we don't see. There's like another.
Oh, I agree.
There's another being on the side of that mirror when Vin Diesel looks at it. Just goes like, "Oh, look at this! Oh, hello there. How are you today?" Yeah, well, I'm doing just super. You're gonna go conquer the world today, aren't you?
Double shooters.
Yeah. He wakes up wearing sunglasses.
Man, I might have said this before, but have you ever been around like a movie star who's a cool movie star? You know what I mean by that? Like somebody who's always dressed like they're a movie star.
I've only met just met nice people. Really, I've had that kind of luck of like, oh, you are just like super down to earth.
Because I might have mentioned this on the show before, but the one time I've met somebody who's just a movie star all the time is Lenny Kravitz. I met him on the first Hunger Games.
That doesn't surprise
and he
me.
shows up to set, and he's dressed like Lenny Kravitz, and he's got sunglasses on and all this other stuff.
It's like you had to go to wardrobe before you hit set, and then you have to change and get to your new wardrobe once you hit set.
Well, and he shows up, and it's really cool, and you're thinking to yourself, like, wow, that's Lenny Kravitz, and Lenny Kravitz is cool. He's wearing his sunglasses and stuff. And then you remember, oh, right, he had to walk almost a half a mile through the sound stage, which is pitch black and impossible to see without some sort of secondary light. So someone had to have walked him through, like a PA had to have walked him through the stages to get to the set that he needed to be on. And he decided to keep the sunglasses on the entire time. That is commitment to cool that I bet you very much Vin Diesel has.
There's a part of that. I agree that could be what happened, but I also believe there's an alternative where he just walks through that whole thing blind and then just uses sonar, just going, "Are you gonna go my way?"
Hey,
and he just catches it, and then he can basically like Daredevil see the room. And then just walks his way
like that
up.
You're using sound effects for jokes now, Adam.
What can I say? I'm a versatile guy. I like to stretch out a little bit, let people know that hey, there's other things on this board. I could raise and lower the volume, but I'll be doggone. I could do a whole lot more than that. So I just want to let people know that there's more potential behind the board than they can imagine. It's just I choose not to do it.
Jeez, man.
I don't know. So thanks, Chad. We really appreciate the email there. And if you'd like to email us, how about you do that at hearmoviepodcast@gmail.com. Let's close up the old mailbag. Do you need 2 shots of it, computer? Come on now.
Bale's here.
And, of course, before we get started, we'd like to just say a quick thank you to everybody that helped support the show over at patreon.com/HMP, getting the pre-show, post-show, and all that kind of goodness and stuff. And, we appreciate it, man. So thank you guys. All right.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Let's jump on into it. Here is the trailer for Jessica Jones, a Season 2.
Third glass tonight.
Put it on my tab.
You drinking to remember or forget?
Giving a shit won't get you a better tip.
I was feeling sad. Can't help looking back. Highway.
My whole family was killed in a car accident. Someone did horrific experiments on me. And now this super vigilante shit keeps coming at me.
Do you know Captain America?
I want to absorb Ailey's investigations.
You don't want me, you just want to eliminate the competition.
I never take no for an answer.
How rapey of you. Something happened behind these doors. I have 17 years of questions, and they are deep.
Just knowing what was done to you might help you.
We were made here. Me and something else. The only way to find it is to open the door wider.
You were brought back from the dead. The powers were a side effect.
How many others are there? Like me?
Let it go. There is a killer you cannot control.
I didn't ask for any of this.
Jessica might not want a sidekick, but she needs one.
You're not super. You're a ticking time bomb.
Keep telling me who I am. How dare you? What if facing it makes me worse?
What are you gonna do?
I don't know. Depends on if I can get through this night without losing my...
Jessica Jones!
It takes a monster to stop a monster. What did they do to us?
Run away. Like you to stay. Want to keep you inside.
Alrighty, that was the trailer for Jessica Jones Season 2. Of course, we got to the first Jessica Jones season. We thoroughly enjoyed that. Let's bring on this Season 2 here. And while he is not here, his words still travel along with him in the good, sweet night. I don't know. That sounds about right. Let's go ahead and do it. Even though Mr. Keenan will be reading it, it's still his, so we're going to give it to him. Oh, you piece of wily junk. You think I'd have figured it out by now, but I'd be wrong.
Comic book connection.
Surrogate Bruce, what do you got for us?
Well, since Bruce can't be here, I'm going to do my best Bruce impression since he wrote this whole thing. Okay, here we go.
All right.
In 1941, Timely Comics decided to get things moving in USA Comics #1 when artist Al Avison introduced a new character called the Wizard, who I assume was dressed in yellow because his name is the Wizard. The writer was not credited, as was common in the Golden Age, but rumors continued to circulate that the uncredited guy was a young up-and-comer named Stan Lee. Can that be? Did Stan Lee get so burned by an artist early in his career that he devoted the rest of his life stealing credit from artists? Now, this is a villain's secret origin story I can get behind. Stan Lee is what Bill Finger could have been had he chosen a slimier path in life. But alas, it was, and back to comics' first urine-themed hero, the Wizard. I'm joking. He isn't urine-themed, but he is a speedster. He debuted about a year after the Golden Age Flash, but never had quite the following that the DC guy had. A big flaw in the Wizard character was his origin story. When Robert Frank was on vacation in Africa, he was bitten by a cobra. Who hasn't had that happen? That's why they put up all those cobra warning signs after all. Well, the cobra bite didn't give the Wizard his speed, but the treatment for it did. Did you know how they treated cobra bites in 1941? No? You don't? Well, neither did Timely Comics. They thought that you treated it with an infusion of mongoose blood. Yeah. They also thought mongoose blood can make someone super fast. I'm going to be honest with you here. I've never seen a mongoose run in the wild, but I have seen groundhogs run, and I have to tell you, those suckers are fast. I'm pretty sure I can't outrun a groundhog over 100 yards. I also think it's fair to say that a mongoose might be faster than a groundhog. So I guess what I'm getting at is I'm cool with the Wizard's origin story. But why not just call him Mongoose Man? Why not make him the mongoose radioactive and have it bite him? One thing that is undeniable is that this mongoose-themed origin story sounds very much like something Stan Lee could have written. The Wizard eventually accepts the offer of Invaders member Bucky, who forms the superhero team, the Liberty Legion, to rescue the other invaders who have been brainwashed by the villain, the Red Skull. When the Liberty Legion and invaders eventually disband after World War II, the Wizard joins the newly formed All-Winners Squad. The Wizard afterwards spent some years battling alcoholism and depression and was for some time homeless in the Bowery section of Manhattan. He also works as a nuclear laboratory technician. Now, how's that for a resume? In the modern age, the Wizard is an over-the-hill hero who thinks Quicksilver is his son. I'm not sure how he would get that idea since Quicksilver is way faster than a mongoose. He's at least at Roadrunner level. The Wizard and Miss America had a son together, a guy named Nuclo, who was radioactive. That's gotta stink, I tell you. Wizard had like 3 heart attacks, I believe, and died from the 3rd one. So the burning question is, who is faster, the Flash or Wizard? Well, I've had my Subaru Outback up to speeds that can outrun a mongoose, so I'm going to say the Flash.
I like the mongoose bicycle myself. I'm a
Oh yeah, the dirt bike, like trick bike.
Yeah, those are those were always heavy. When I was like for a very brief stint, I worked at the toy department at a Walmart. And let me tell you, everyone wants all the expensive bikes were on the top, and everyone always just kind of wanted to look at them. It's just like, hey man, could you go get that big giant expensive bike down here? All right, here you go. Hey, that's pretty cool. Well, I appreciate it, man. We're not gonna a half hour with this thing, and we're not gonna go purchase it now. Oh no, I'll be back tomorrow. Oh, super. Bye, guy. I wonder why I left that job rather quick. Yeah, I'll be honest. I like the idea that Stan Lee is that's where the supervillain story started for him. It makes sense.
It would make sense that he didn't get credit on something, so now he takes credit for everything. Although, I'm going to call a treaty for right now with Stan Lee, just from me personally. You guys can do whatever you want, because what's happening to his personal life is a wreck, and I don't want to kick the man while he is in the last stages of his life, and people are taking advantage of him.
Yeah, look, man, he's on the downside of everything here. When you're 98 now? Is it?
Yeah, I think he's around there. If only we had
the power of if there was only a place that we could look and that would tell us, with pretty much utmost certainty whether or not.
What am I, a magician?
You remember we used to just have bar fights on account of all of this stuff. So
that's why Guinness made the world record book.
Exactly. 95, I was close. But so at 95 years old, I think we can all pretty much agree there's more years behind him than there are in front of him. So, yeah. Just let's let him go off, people. Come on. What are you going to do?
Yeah, and they got people taking advantage of him, and, the people who were surrounding him and helping him are all gone now, and there's people who may or may not have his best interests in mind.
It turns out they're just feeding me Tic Tacs now, and I'm really getting irked. Those are supposed to be heart pills. Now, we came across Jessica Jones season 1, and I think maybe not a whole lot of the world actually knew that Jessica Jones was a character per se, but boy, when they found out that she was, everyone kind of glommed on and was just like, hey, this is actually one of the stronger series out of all of the current and then Marvel television batch, if you will.
Yeah, especially, with the Netflix stuff.
Oh, for sure. Now, and I think of all of us, you were actually the biggest Jessica Jones fan. Well, yeah, I am. And it's because I love what they've done with this character. She's not exactly what they have in the comic books. The reference, the source material is not does not line up with who Jessica Jones is in the TV series, but that's fine, because something that they've learned over time is, look, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to have the same feel to it, and that's exactly what it has. And so when Bendis comes out with Alias, it's got to be 20 years ago now, probably. That sounds about right. Keep in mind, he had that. He was still doing that trick at that time where, this is a character that existed before, even though she didn't. And so he pulled her out of whole cloth, and people would have fake memories of this character that never existed before. I mean, in real life, like you and me talking right now, like, oh yeah, I love Diamond, but there was no character. Like, that's not a thing that existed previously. And so he fooled a bunch of people into thinking that Jessica Jones had existed in the Marvel Universe, because back then you kind of had to do something like that because people would not be on board for a brand new character. And so I know he did that with Sentry, and he did that with Jessica Jones and Alias. And of those two characters, Jessica Jones was by far my favorite one of those two. However, Jessica Jones on Netflix is far and away, not even close, my favorite character in this universe. Mm-hmm. I think that she has the most legs. I think that she is going to be the character that you remember over time. And Daredevil, of course, and the Punisher, maybe, Luke Cage, maybe, but definitely Jessica Jones is someone who 10 years from now, you're going to be thinking, what? I haven't seen Jessica Jones in a long time. Let's rewatch some Jessica Jones. Yeah. Because that first season is that good.
and she has one of the best baddies that they've had in the Marvel Universe period, not just television Marvel, but Marvel period. I can remember the conversation we kept having when we talked about Jessica Jones, because what was it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
About almost three, I guess.
One of the things we kept talking about was they should pull out Kilgrave and bring him into the cinematic universe because he's that good of a villain. And it was something that Marvel, the MCU, was lacking at the time, because at that point, really all they had for like really great villains was Loki. I mean, now we have a bunch of them, but at the time, Loki was really your only good villain.
Yeah, starting to finally get into the groove and go, oh, this is what we can do. And it's amazing that even though when there's like little handicaps like that how Marvel can still kind of one up DC and everything that they do. It's like DC, you got all the heroes, you got all the villains. And yet when Marvel still tries to struggle with stuff, eventually they'll get it and they'll be like, we still don't really have villains most people know of.
Right. And you know, one of the things that I really love about this series is that when you are a comic book fan, you want to bring the people in your life into the thing that you love so much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's difficult when it's somebody, you know, the adults, you know, when you're talking to adults and they're like, well, where do I start? And my go-to was always Why the Last Man, because it's an easy jump, you know, like it's an easy starter book to get somebody interested in. And it has a great ending and the story is terrific. And it's totally not what you expect that book to be.
And speaking like great. Last week with Watchmen, you certainly don't hand them that. That's too much.
No. That is not what you start with.
No,
sure.
It's like, hey, this'll make you love comic books. Probably not.
Right, but for people who, you know, comic book movies, it hits them the wrong way. And I have plenty of friends in my life who hate comic book movies. But you know, every so often we get one for the good side where somebody will come up to me and be like, "Hey, so what is there something I should be watching superhero wise?" And I always ask if they've seen Jessica Jones first, because Jessica Jones is a great introduction into the Marvel universe, and because it's smart, it's well acted, it's well written, well directed. That first season is anyway.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take such a big leap of faith, and there's not costumes and there's not, you know, there's power, but it's like like she's not good at it.
Yeah, and I was about to say, for as far as like some powers and stuff go too, Punisher would be a good one for that as well, just on account of there's nobody with powers really.
Right.
Not in the traditional sense, or at least as far as the heroes and stuff go. So you don't look and just be like, oh, well, this just is so far out there, and that kind of that cringiness that your non-comic friends would get if they see something like that. It's just like, oh, he's got magnetic powers, what a crock. You know, they're not doing that.
Right. And so, you know, I know that you got snake bit by what you said at the beginning of last year, that the movie you were most looking forward to was Lego Batman. So we didn't say that at the end of the year for this year, like what we're looking most forward to. Actually we did, because I think I said I was looking most forward to the Avengers, Infinity War, and that's still true for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the thing I look most forward to. But number two is not the Han Solo movie. Number two was season 2 of Jessica Jones. That's how forward I was looking to this series coming back, because I love Kristen Ritter. She's great to look at, but she's also just great in the role.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoy her performance and who she is in the show, and I believe everything she's doing. You know, I don't think of her as an actress performing a role. I think of her as that character.
Yeah, and that's something, and from an actress that we already know. It's not like she was. It was not like she was a complete newfound person that no one had any experience with previously. We've all seen her in stuff, you know.
Right.
And so the fact that she can come in now, and that's what we know when we look at her and think about her, you know, that's a big deal.
Right. You know, I mean, she's in Breaking Bad. Like, that's, you can't get much bigger than being on that show. She's in that show. She had her own sitcom with the Bee in Apartment 23, which is a great, great show if you haven't seen it. And I believe it's still on Netflix. Check that out if you haven't seen that yet. And so when she comes back to this role, and because I think that she was so grossly underused in the Defenders, because it seems ridiculous what's happening in Defenders to have her there for a lot of it.
The whole thing just feels rushed when you really look back at it.
It does. And, watching, if we can, do you mind if I start getting into season 2 here?
Please.
So season 2, Jessica Jones starts off excellent to me. I love that the character's back. I like where she is. I like that they even have the foresight to go, you know what? She wouldn't have fixed her office all the way.
Right.
It would still be banged up. And that's terrific. I'm so glad that they decided to do that because, it's character development through art department where, look, her life is a mess. It's such a mess that she hasn't even fixed her apartment.
It's like it's gotten slightly better, but not a lot.
Right. She's not all there yet. And it's really interesting that they did that. That's an excellent choice because it tells you who this character is. She doesn't think enough of herself to even fix up her office, which is also where she lives. Like she hasn't even fixed that yet. So that's great. And you get reintroduced to all these characters again, which, I like. I like the Hogarth character. I think she's great. Carrie-Anne Moss is great in that role, who has really made the nice transition to villainous woman, like her. She was originally, the waif-like hot girl in Matrix and in Memento and all that, but then she's shifted now where she's an elder statesman who has doesn't have everyone's best interests in mind.
Yeah, and doesn't have to like it's great because doesn't have to do a giant flying back kick through somebody through a window or something like that, but yet still at the same time carries weight with her character, and that you feel some menace and power through that character despite her not just going through and kicking in heads.
And there's something truly terrible about that character. I mean, there's something really, really awful. And I hope we see that with the third season, if they are going to make a third season of the show. I certainly hope that they hit that, where she is the big bad at the end of all this. I think that'd be very cool. I will say this, I've been saying a lot of good things about season 2 because I do enjoy it, and we're only going to episode 6. Is that correct?
Right.
So I will try to keep it to episode 6. I've watched the whole series because I love the character so much. But the first couple episodes are great. I like that there's this new menace, and we're starting to learn a little more of her backstory, which I don't even think they really get into in the books. It's been a long time since I've read the source material, but I don't even think they really get into it in the books, how she gets her power. But it's interesting, and she's having flashbacks, and she's drinking just as much as she used to, and she's abrasive and hard to deal with, and banging dudes in bathrooms, which is disgusting, and like this, it's really great the way that they're making this character someone who, for some reason, she's terrible, but that she has everyone's best interest in mind, and so you are really pulling for this character, and just through sheer performance, I think that she totally pulls that off, and it's great. And I like that the inch by inch we start getting into what the main plot of season 2 is, but they don't explore it right away. They're giving you a get to know these characters again phase, which it needed, because I hadn't seen season 1. I've seen it twice, but I hadn't seen it in a while. How about you? When's the last time you saw it?
I think when we finished covering it, but yeah. And by the way, are you saying bathroom parlances are not a good thing? Well,
generally, no.
Generally, no.
No, there's no way that you're prepared for that moment.
Follow me,
if you know what I mean,
to the public restroom.
Yes, awful, just awful.
Not enough disinfectant in the world. Now, I do want to talk about this because I feel, and you correct me if I'm wrong on this, because you mentioned that you saw the first one more than once. I think season 2 here is the first time that we're seeing a little bit of a change within style of how this show is done. And one of the main things is, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first one that we've had to actually have voiceover.
Yes, that is right, because they want to make it feel more like a detective show, which they
I
should.
like.
Yeah. I'm generally not a big fan of the voiceover, but when you're doing a noirish style show, it's totally fine. And I like that when she's talking to the audience, she's not exactly the best narrator in the world, Like I do like that choice as well. She's sort of she's giving facts, but the facts are just completely smothered in her own wretchedness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she's not happy to be talking to you. She's not happy to be telling you what's happening. She just has to,
Yeah, I mean, it totally it kind of took me by surprise, and like I'd like to see a little bit more of that happen in certain things. I mean, for me, Spider-Man was always a big one to where it's just like I'm just through all the movies, I've just been shocked of how little to no actual just internal dialogue, and even if you do have some of that, and we looked like it was a little bit better with Spider-Man Homecoming, is hey, if he's not thinking of it in his head, he needs to be blabbing it out of his mouth.
I agree with you with the he should be talking more, but I don't agree with the voiceover.
Maybe not. I mean, like I said, it's all like balanced. Look at it, see what works and what doesn't. If it doesn't, don't do it. But at least with this time, he's more talky. But yeah. So everybody's kind of everybody's back here, but that's something that I did not think that we were going to do this season was more of a kind of. What was more of that detective route? I mean, obviously, it sounds silly to think of that with the show and what what she does as far as investigative, work and everything goes. But for some reason, it seemed like it was way more hardcore into who done it, kind of gather the evidence sort of thing than it was even last year.
Well, and that's what the books are. The only one that isn't that way, and it kind of still is where you learn about Kilgrave. In the books, the books are always a detective. She's a detective first. The backstory is that she used to be a superhero and she has some powers, but they're kind of hinky, and she is just solving crimes. And I think there's 4 trades altogether, and there's only one trade that is like season 1. Season 1 is, I think, the last trade, which is the Purple Man. But every other trade is always detective work, and I wanted to see more of that, quite frankly, because that's who that character is. And one of the problems that we've discussed this before, but one of the problems I'm really having with Netflix Marvel is that the shows are the same. They're too much alike. Where was that Luke Cage I saw that in, or was that Iron Fist I saw that in? Yeah, and there's too much of that. And this season of Jessica Jones, I was feeling that as well, where it's like, there's not a hallway fight this time, thank God. But there's enough of the same to where it feels like it could be from any other show. And I think that one of the things they need to start thinking about is getting in someone who's completely different for Netflix Marvel. But I doubt that's going to happen with Disney starting its own streaming service.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like they're going to they said hopes for a Defenders 2 is probably a little bit low. But they'll continue obviously doing the things that they're doing right now. I think they're either still shooting or just finished up shooting season 2 of Luke Cage. I think the same probably goes for Daredevil. They're coming close to those, so everybody's coming back. Even Iron Fist, people. Even Iron Fist.
Oh, no, that's too bad. The only way that they can save that show is to kill him and bring in a new person. Someone who actually knows Kung Fu.
But see, he'd have to he'd still go around having to tell everybody, I'm the immortal Iron Fist.
Yeah, whatever.
I am. Me. Just me this time.
Whatever. He is the weak link. And, Defenders, I think we've spoken about this during Punisher, but Defenders were such a letdown to me. I needed it to be better than it was, which is such a sucky baby thing to say because we are so spoiled now being comic book fans, where even 10 years ago, if Defenders come out, we are singing its praises day and night and how great it is. And I can't believe that we finally got a great Defenders.
Now we're just a bunch of jaded old men who are just like, you know what? It's not nearly as good as I wanted it to be.
Whatever. You know, I didn't even believe Sigourney Weaver was who she said she was.
I wish it was good. It wasn't. Boo. Like, it's like, shut up. Just shut up, you big giant baby.
Which is why I feel like I'm on the same path here about being a sucky baby when it comes to Jessica Jones season 2. You know, the first season of Jessica Jones, you could try to pull me away from the TV. You know, I watched every episode. Like my life depended on it, and season 2 does not have that same feeling. It's good. It's just it doesn't have that same magic that season 1 has, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, good. So it's not just me. Like, I mean, for the 6 episodes that I've watched so far, I have enjoyed them, but it didn't. You're right. It did not grab me like season 1 did. But
I also think that might be impossible just because it was such a surprise how good Jessica Jones was. Because Jessica Jones was second, right? So you had Daredevil, and then you had Jessica Jones. Am I right in that?
I believe so.
And it was such a surprise that not only did they nail Daredevil, and it's so terrific, but they've also nailed this character that we've never really seen before in a mass media way. And so she's just so it was such a shock that
we can't see that magic trick twice.
Right. So the season 2 has to be, to me, it doesn't have to be bigger, badder, better. It just has to be different. And there isn't enough difference from season 1 to season 2, in my opinion, to make it so special and magic. And you know, it's the card trick that they just pulled with Thor, where Thor, the first movie, it was surprising that it was good, and so it got a pass because it's not a great movie. The second one, not so much of a pass. People were kind of bummed by that. But Thor 3, they completely flipped the book, and everyone's like, "This is the way Thor is supposed to be."
They're like, finally, it's like, even though it was not a thing, people were just like, finally, the Thor that I know. It's just like, no, it's not. Shut up.
Well, yes, but you see, I see where that comes from.
Oh yeah,
you know, it's the same thought of like when Al Gore said he invented the internet. Like, no, you didn't, and we know that you didn't. But what that comes from is that you don't think you got enough credit for the Clinton administration. We all understand why you lied about the internet, because you wanted more. You know, you wanted more props for the time.
Did you ever have one of those friends growing up that would just lie, and you're just like, really, guy? Like
yeah, I was that guy. I was that person.
Our friend Noah, he was the one that was always just like, he would just come up with this stuff, and it's just like, no, I'm not stupid. That's not even close to being true.
I literally went to therapy for it so that I wouldn't lie so much anymore.
You know, I am the czar to Cuba. What?
It worked. It totally worked.
Now, one thing that I'll say about this season that I like is we've definitely started to get into character more other than Jessica, which was by and large the person that we really, focused on in season 1. We're finally starting to get the ancillary characters and dress them up a little bit more, give them a little bit more something to do. Right. Trish is not just a like, hey, I'm over here at the radio station that's not put together like any radio station that's ever existed in the history of man with
right.
their giant glass wall.
Yeah,
doesn't exist.
Perfect. Yeah, it's Hollywood radio station.
Yeah, it's just like, here we are, we're sitting around here, and it's just like, even like the most posh of NPR offices don't look like that.
Well, I mean, you know what it's like. It's also like when you see a newspaper, like a newspaper place on TV or movies, where there's a million people and they're all running around, and maybe that's the way it used to look.
Yeah.
But it is nothing like that now.
You walk into a newspaper place now, it just looks like, okay, this is the part in the game when the zombies come out and start getting at me.
It really looks like it is abandoned desks as far as the eye can see.
Hey, there's a tumbleweed. I didn't know they made those in real life. Wow.
For our movie that we were working on, we shot at the Charlotte Observer, and we fill up all the desks, and we dress it all in. And one of the actual reporters comes into the room and he goes, "Oh man, this reminds me of when I was a kid just starting to work here." Anyway.
And that man still thinks his job matters. the most stuck up people are the newspaper people. They're just like, we're still the best. No, you're not.
Speaking of Netflix TV series, by the way, I just saw the latest Letterman episode, and he's walking around Oxford, and or maybe it's Cambridge, and he walks up to a guy and he's like, "So, what's your major? What are you in for?" And the guy goes, "I'm going to be a newspaper reporter." And Letterman literally looks at him, gives him like a 3 Mississippi, and then he goes, "Well, now's the time."
I might as well be able to just go in and say exactly whatever position I want, and they'll just give it to me.
Dude still got it, man. Anyway,
but Trish is better. She's got more things to do, as does Malcolm. Malcolm is now finally off of the smack and has become a contributing member to society.
Yeah, and we get to see Trish's mom, and I love Rebecca De Mornay. I've loved her forever. I think she needs to work a lot more. She's great as Trish's mom. She's great, but she's great in literally everything, man. I can't even name a movie, even in stuff where like the movie is bad, she's great in it. And this is definitely not something that's bad. And she just plays that TV mom so great, man. That the backstage mom. It's exactly what they're like. Because it's more complicated than just whatever that big fat lady is who used to have the show with her daughter, Honey Boo Boo. Honey Boo Boo. Like she's like it's way more complicated than Honey Boo Boo, and they nail it with Rebecca De Mornay.
I hadn't thought about Honey Boo Boo in quite some time. Thanks for that run through the jungle.
Well, old man reference of the evening.
Well, let me tell you, there was something a good 5 years ago called Honey Boo Boo, everybody.
And the kids, your kids watching your Honey Boo Boo on the Googles.
Like, shut up, Grandpa. You don't know what you're talking about anymore. But
so Adam, just as a generality, what do you think of what you've seen so far?
I like it. This is the first time where I've watched one of these to where I've really said this could do to be a weekly thing, as opposed to the regular Netflix 13 dump.
Right.
I feel like this is one that you really could go through and watch on a week-to-week basis and still would get a lot out of it. So if you're one of those people that goes, hey, man, I really want to see, I like this stuff, but I don't like to gobble it all down in one sitting and everything, which I can completely understand. This is also one I feel, at least at this point, 6 episodes in, that you wouldn't go like, oh, man, I really wish I would have seen that, back to back to back to back. I think you can space these out.
Yeah, I agreed, because it's not so intricate that, you're going to lose that muscle memory and come back to it a week later and forget everything you saw. It's not like a super tight packed high wire act. It's pretty standard. It's pretty standard storytelling. And so you may have a point with that, or at least just in chunks, because I think I would be pretty pissed if they drop Jessica Jones and there's just one episode. That would piss me off. But if they drop a chunk of it's a 13 episode season. Let's say they drop 4.
And they are kind of doing that with some stuff on Netflix, giving you a first half and then like a second half a little bit later. Or in some cases, I can't remember. I know the show Disjointed was like filmed all at the same time. I don't know if they gave them 2 seasons or like 2 different halves of a season, but they're doing it like that with them. So,
Huh.
It's not unheard of in Netflix land. And same thing with the docuseries Toys That Made Us. They dropped the first 4 episodes or something, and they're going to drop another 4 kind of midsummer.
Ooh, that's exciting.
So there's more stuff like that. So it's not unheard of, but I think at this point we've probably already gotten into a pattern to where heads will roll if you don't drop my 13 when you say that you're going to drop them.
Right. And one of the things that I found surprising this season with Jessica Jones is just the love that's being lavished upon the show. Like I got the first season why everybody loved it so much, but critics love Jessica Jones. They love the show so much, and the show is good for sure, but it's not it's not the greatest thing you've ever seen. It's just very good.
All right.
And what the critics are saying about it are insane to me.
I'm going to say something a little controversial, but that's not out of my character. But this is a good thing. Everything I'm going to say are going to be very good things, and not things that I disapprove of whatsoever. But I think something that can also help, gain in the points, if you will. This is another show that is, it's a very woman-centric show, and this is yet another time here. I believe I haven't had the chance to research every single one of them, but from the looks of it, every single episode of this show this season is brought to you by a woman.
Oh, that would make sense.
And the majority of them have been written by women. There's a couple dudes in there, but I think every director for season 2 is a woman. So it's another one of those great Hollywood checkbox moment sort of thing. It's just like, hey, this is what we're doing. And sometimes, not for nothing, I'm not going to say that that's the case for this particular project, but there are projects out there that just if you fill enough of the certain quotas, even if you are just kind of mediocre, you may get a little bit more praise just because, you are the super inclusive everything that's out there. It happens. I'm not saying that that's the case for this particular thing, but,
I think it totally makes sense to have women directing this show.
Oh, I do too, and I think that's
completely.
Great. And I think it's great, and I think that's another thing of where we'll start to get more of these women directors into features is to have them in television, because let's be honest, most big male directors ended up starting in television, more or less.
Right, and I know one of the directors, I can't remember her name. She's directed everything, and she directed an episode of Jessica Jones this year. I believe it's episode 6, but I'm not sure. Anyway, she's been working as a TV director for 20 years, and when you look at her resume, it's impressive. I don't know why she hasn't gotten a feature, to be quite honest with you. Now, with that being said, it is my turn to be controversial.
Okie dokie. All right, we're nothing if not controversial this show.
Because I love, I love when tables are turned. The best idea wins. All of that. I've always been about that. Hire the right person for the right job. I've always been that way. However, when things start going out of control in the wrong way, in the opposite way, to try to course correct all of the things that have the mistreatment of people over the years, it makes me insane. And the exact example I have, and this project eventually ended up stalling out, and they're doing something else with the property. But do you remember a few years ago they were going to reboot The Rocketeer? Do you know the story?
Oh, there's still almost rumblings about it yet again. So yeah.
Well, they are about to start a new project. I mean, it's going to be on Disney Kids. It's a whole thing, right? Mm-hmm. So they got a new person in as the Rocketeer. That's all fine. That's great. Whatever you're going to do with that character, at least the character's still going on. Perfect.
Right.
But what they were talking about a few years ago was a total and utter reboot of The Rocketeer. And the project I'm specifically talking about right now stalled out, which I am so thankful for. Because what they were going to do was they were going to set it, basically moments after the first movie. Mm-hmm. And they were going to have the Rocketeer be a woman, which is fine by me. And they were going to have it be an African-American woman, which is also fine by me. Mm-hmm. But they were going to make that African-American woman a test pilot. You cannot rewrite history to make your stupid movie work. There were no African-American female test pilots in 1945. That just didn't happen. So don't put it into your dumb movie. either put it in modern day or put it in the future or put it wherever where that makes sense. That's fine. But putting an African American female in the Rocketeer gear as in 1945, that makes absolutely no sense at all. And so when you see something now, that was the controversial part. Now, when I head back into Jessica Jones, you can do whatever you want with the Jessica Jones character. Mm-hmm. That character, it works anywhere, anytime, any place. She's a very versatile character. But the one thing that you need to have with that character is, even though she's rough and tumble and you might think that she behaves like a dude, she does not. She's still a woman, and she needs to be directed by women and written by women to make that character more real. Mm-hmm. And they've done that, and it's good on them. And it's not a big deal that she's a lady. Like, you're a lady with superpowers? They don't do any of that.
Right, exactly. They don't. You're absolutely correct. And I agree. I think it's not one of those just like, oh, this would just be the things that like a dude would say.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily feel like, that kind of in there. And I give a little bit to the writer, a little bit to the director, and a little bit to her as well, because I think all three really have to work in tandem for it not to come off as just kind of like, hey, ooh, whatever,
Right. And that's the problem that they had with the last Ghostbusters movie, is that the big joke is, we're all ladies.
We're ladies. How about that? It's just like, okay, yeah, we get that.
That is not a funny joke. It should be. It shouldn't even be a deal. Like, yeah, we're women and we bust ghosts. Okay.
I mean, and we barely even bring it up. I mean, like it's kind of, you can. What I think is nice is you can see it in faces, but like when she goes and just for lack of a better term, manhandles, because she does, these little dudes, and the look on their face is just like, how is this tiny little woman just holding me down like I'm nothing? And
they know, but they do say it, because they're, they're doing that thing that Marvel does, where it's social justice through superpowers, and so basically it's the allegory of racial hatred or homosexual hatred, where we hate superpowered people, and they finally brought it to the Marvel. The Marvel Netflix universe, which I'm surprised by that's where it started.
Well, yeah. But that's more on powers per se, and not necessarily upon gender. Because like if Luke Cage held them down, they'd go like, "Oh, I get this."
Right.
But like a tiny lady holds them down, and it is a look of like they. But it's not. There's not the line of like, yeah, but you're a girl. None of that.
Right.
Which I'm thankful for, because that could easily be something that they do every time that she goes and has a fantastic, because even her holding the refrigerator up, but like he looks at it, he's like, oh, but that's a look of like, oh, this person's a powered person, as opposed to like, oh, look at what this girl did,
Right.
And that's where his disdain comes from. It's like, oh, I don't know about all this. This may not be good for me in my situation, having this type of person around, which I think is good.
I do too, and I like the other part. I think I'm getting this timeline right. The other part that I like is she uses the Malcolm character to go try to get her out of the living situation by basically offering him up as a plaything for the landlord. Mm-hmm. Where that is a terrible thing for a human being to do.
Yeah.
And that is your main character, everybody. That's your big hero doing that. And that's complicated, and that's mean-spirited, and that is great. And there's very few characters who could get away with that and you still like them afterward.
Yeah, it's a tough line to walk, and at the same time, I think that's something that's also should be integral to this character, is that it should be someone that we're looking at all the time going like, I like you, but boy, there's some aspects about you I don't care for still.
Right.
And,
so
that's a balance to walk.
So have you actually watched all the episodes, or did you just finish at 6?
I've just got half, yeah.
So where do you think that this is going to go?
That's a really good question. So at the end, spoiler alert here for the first 6 episodes and everything. So at the end of episode 6 here, we find out that the other power, if you will, that she's been following around looks to be, her possible mother. And I think that's and again, going back to the whole where we've been searching back and forth and uncovering little, slivers of her life and like where she came from and everything. I'm curious. I'm curious as to where things go. I don't know. and here's the thing. I'm not even one of those people that goes out so far as to try to guess what things are. Because to me, that just ruins everything.
You just want it to wash over.
I'm a
you,
wash
and that's a
over
good way to
you
do
guy.
it.
Yeah, for sure. Because like anytime that because I've been with those people in the theater that you're watching something and they're just like, I got it, and I'm just like, I don't care if you got it. That's lovely if you do. That's not a goal that I go to. I want to If I figure it out, like just from a very superficial kind of like, oh well, I done got it. I get it. That's fine and good. But I don't go out of my way to just go like, how do I solve this? I'm like, I'm not Sherlock Holmes, right? I want to read Sherlock Holmes. I don't want to be Sherlock Holmes, if you will. If that makes sense.
Well, that's very healthy and unlike you.
I don't want to know. I'm just like, let it happen.
That's also what makes people go, what do you mean Ray is nobody?
See, and whereas me, on the other hand, I know you were the same way, I was just like, perfect, love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
I am so glad that she's no one.
That just makes me so happy, and I hope they don't reverse on that. I hope they double down and just go like, no, we weren't kidding.
Yeah, I don't want to have something happen in this last one where they're like, well, you all know one from a certain point of view.
We are all knowing if you think about it.
Yeah.
Boo. No, she's nobody, and that's what makes that awesome. And that's what, and heck, people thought, Darth Vader wasn't actually Luke Skywalker's father. There was a contingent of people that were just like, oh, no. Well, that's not. Hell, James Earl Jones himself didn't buy it.
I didn't. I'll tell you. I saw Empire Strikes Back in the movie theater as a kid. I thought he was lying to him.
Yeah. So I mean,
I really did.
That's a huge thing. And so, and I hope that this time we're just like, we don't sit there and just go like, oh, that's a lie. We just go, no, that's true. That's what happened. And I think this show needs to be like that too. Just be straightforward. Just happen. Toy around with some stuff, and that's fine. But again, I'm never one trying to figure out the mystery.
Well, that is bully for you, sir. And it will be very interesting to see what you have to say about the second half of the season.
I am still interested. So before we get down to giving our impressions of the first half here, we have to ask ourselves one of the most important questions that we possibly can is, how does this program relate back to one Sylvester Stallone, who, by the way, I saw on Instagram, speaking of like old people exercising, he's over here doing pull-ups with like 100-pound dumbbells like on his waist and stuff. I'm like, you're an 80-year-old man. My goodness. Stallone connection, sorry.
Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Oh, my goodness. Go ahead.
Who in the wide world of sports is John Ventimiglia? Let me say that again. Ventimiglia. Who in the wide world of sports is John Ventimiglia? Why should we care? What has he done? And more importantly, when we finish this week's Stallone connection, will we come away with a new worldview, especially as it relates to John Ventimiglia? Pause for effect. Yep. John Ventimiglia has been acting since 1992. And if you need a guy that looks so much like a cop that your brain immediately forgets this guy is an actor and not actually a cop, then you need to call John Ventimiglia. He's been 5 different people on Law & Order. He's been on CSI. He was a cop in The Cowboy Way with Kiefer Sutherland and Woody Harrelson. He played a cop in the movie Extreme Measures with Gene Hackman. And he plays Detective Eddie Costa on Jessica Jones. He's best known as Artie Bucco on The Sopranos, which is a show I watched when it came out but have absolutely no interest in ever seeing again. Meanwhile, in 1997, Sylvester Stallone was tired of being an action star and wanted to be taken seriously as an actor. So he came up with a pretty good plan. play a burnt-out cop in a movie with critically acclaimed movie stars, give a solid acting performance, and change the public opinion of him from aging tough-to-deal-with Hollywood hotshot to serious actor with a sense of humor about himself. It almost worked. That movie was Copland, which we've spoken about before on HMP. It's a good movie. Stallone gives a good performance, but Stallone is still Stallone. You can't watch Copland and forget you're watching the same guy who a few years previous starred in a movie where he solved crimes with his mom. Copland is a good movie, but it's not magic, even if John Ventimiglia plays Officer V in it. John Ventimiglia was born in Ridgewood, Queens, New York, and raised in Teaneck, New Jersey, which means he has absolutely no opinions about pizza or baseball or subway patterns. And he currently lives in Brooklyn, where he's probably never spoken about how tough he is because he's from New York, and he's totally fine with the selection of cold cuts from anywhere in the country. And finally, he's also at the Comedy Central roast of Dennis Leary. He doesn't roast Leary, but he's definitely there, and it seems weird that a serious actor like John Ventimiglia would be at Dennis Leary's roast. But here's the thing. They both worked on the movie Jesus' Son. And while I looked around the Googles to see if I could find anything about their friendship, I found nothing. But that doesn't mean we can't play my favorite game called Wild Conjecture. Here's how you play. You take very little information and blow it completely out of proportion, so here we go. I think John Ventimiglia is one of those really nice guys that's so nice you don't even know how to take him at first because he's thoughtful and he does stuff like, hey, I was at this really cool vintage store over the weekend, and while I was there, I got you this Fisher-Price Little People farmhand because I remember you saying you collected Fisher-Price Little People. And for you HMPers that don't remember Fisher-Price Little People, they had a barn and a zoo and a plane. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then your parents hated you because those are awesome toys. And John Ventimiglia hands you the Fisher-Price Little People farmhand, and you're not sure how to take it because you've never really even thought about John Ventimiglia when he's not around. And now you feel like maybe you're a terrible person because it would never occur to you in a million years to buy something so thoughtful for John Ventimiglia. And maybe you need to reevaluate what's important in your life instead of being the piece of human garbage you've become because you're wretched and deplorable and all you do is take. So there's your Stallone connection for this week, HMPers. John Ventimiglia, a nice guy who works a lot. Now, Claire, let's wrap up this episode of Hero Movie Podcast so we can get back to our lives. And I'm sorry about that, Adam.
It's only funny because it's true. All right, here. So basically with the first 6 episodes, I'm looking forward to what's kind of coming here. They are laying out what's to come at this, and I have an inkling as to something that's going to happen in the future, just on account of what we see on the internet all of these days. So I'm interested to see how we get there. But as of right now, while I may not be as head over heels in love with it as I was the first season, I am still intrigued enough to continue to watch. And I think over the next, little over a week and everything, I'll be able to kind of parse out the next 7 episodes here and really get it. And of course, we'll have Bruce in and we'll get down more on a episode to episode basis kind of deal. So your first thoughts going with your first 6?
For where we are right now, I'm going to say that I'm pleased with this character and I'm pleased with this season. Jessica Jones is still my favorite character in the Netflix Marvel universe, and nothing's going to change that for the time being. But it's not as great as the first season. But again, like I said earlier, it's also not such a surprise at how good it is. Yeah. And that's a hard, that's a hard high wire act to follow, that first season. So I like it a lot. I'm very pro Jessica Jones after the first 6 episodes for sure.
Okay, excellent. All right, so that's it for this week. We'll come up with our full Robin rating when we're back and doing the last half of the thing and all that kind of good jazz with our good friend Bruce Leslie, who's just out with what was it, karate champion all up over the place.
Yeah, he'll come home with the All Valley Tournament Karate Championship trophy.
A trophy bigger than him, no less.
Yeah, and we're all going to be real proud of our boy.
It's going to be so nice. But next week we're going to jump back into the land of happy. That's right, Sean. Get off of that table. You don't get the noose from around your neck. Don't worry. We're just covering the last half of the first season of Happy, which we liked. Sean almost, we had to bring it back from the brink of destruction, but we got him there. So
I thought it was like I said during the first episodes. It's a good show. It's just such a bummer. You can't. I personally, I'm sure many people can. I cannot sit and watch this in all one sitting. I would do something terrible to myself.
And what I want you to do is watch this and Taxi Driver.
The Leftovers and Taxi Driver. No, thank you. Leaving Las Vegas.
Leaving Las Vegas, Enter the Void, whatever you want to do. Just have yourself a time. So we'll be covering that in the next week. And, so tweet Bruce. Tweet him at Chubby Wizard. Just let him know that you missed him and all that kind of good jazz. Bring it out there. We do the show, but we're a triplet team here, man.
Mm-hmm. We always need that third heat.
We do indeed. In the meantime, where can we find more of your work on the internet, sir?
Please find me at Hero Movie Sean on Twitter. If you want to hear more podcasts with my nasally New England twang, you can always go to dogeatpod.com with my buddy Noah. And actually, you should totally check out Bruce's other podcasts. He's got 1,000. But I really like Heroes and Villains, and find a character you want to hear about, and it's probably there.
Chances are he's got it.
That dude's got everything.
Get yourself some encyclopedic knowledge up in your head, man. And you can find me walking down the road with a bindle in my hand, just begging for spare change. Or just go over to the Film Find, and there we did, 3 new releases. I think I actually reviewed 5 new releases total on that. We had Krista on as a guest. And I think with our pre and post show on that one for Patreon, we were at 3 hours and 40 minutes.
Oh, my word.
It was a big one. Now, not everyone gets that one. Most people get the 2-hour version that was out to the people. But it was fun and it was entertaining. And you don't have to take it all in one big swath. But this week's going to be a little bit less because we don't have as many movies to cover. And I don't know who I'm going to be doing it with. I may just be doing it alone. Who knows? That's just the life that I lead right now because Matt's in Toronto. Anywho.
Oh, lovely town.
So check us all out, man. And, of course, if you would like to, go ahead and rate us on the iTunes there. We really appreciate that. Always love the 5-star reviews, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
Got to hear that every now and then. So that is it, everybody. Join us next week when we're talking the second half of Happy. That's on the Sci-Fi Channel. For the absent Bruce Leslie and Sean... Well, for Sean Keenan, the absent Bruce Leslie, because if I did it the other way around, you'd have been gone too, and that doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense. For Sean Keenan and the absent Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.